So friends, what are we to make of the constant reporting about how the Department of Justice's investigation is ratcheting up, how the circle is tightening, how the DOJ is closing in on Donald Trump and his criminal associates? You know, I have a thought, a perspective on where we stand right now on the investigative front, and it's a perspective that is informed by my career as a prosecutor. So, with your kind indulgence, I'd like to talk about it for a few minutes. Because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So rarely does a day go by when we don't see some new reporting about how the Department of Justice is closing in, how the circle is tightening around Donald Trump and his many criminal associates. For example, in recent days we've seen the following reporting from the New York Times. Prosecutors seek testimony on Trump's claims to have declassified documents. The Justice Department is seeking to compel Kash Patel, an ally of the former president, to answer questions about assertions that material taken from the White House had been declassified. And what did we learn about this clown, Kash Patel, a former Devin Nunes flunky? Oh, an author of a child's picture book that, quote, perpetuates the false claims of election fraud during the 2020 U.S. election. And given that it's a picture book, it looks like it resonates with Donald Trump. Well, here is some of what we learned about Kash Patel. Patel repeatedly invoked his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. In response, prosecutors asked a top federal judge in Washington to compel Mr. Patel to answer questions, a move Patel's lawyers have strenuously opposed. The question now is whether the Justice Department will grant him immunity in order to secure his testimony. And there are other recent headlines like this from the New York Times. Prosecutors pressure Trump aides to testify in documents case. The Justice Department's efforts to win the witnesses' cooperation shows how the investigation stemming from the classified materials found at Mar-a-Lago is entering a new phase. Federal prosecutors have ratcheted up their pressure in recent weeks on key witnesses. So we see these reports day after day after day, week after week, month after month, about how the investigative circle is tightening around Donald Trump. And we grow weary. We get anxious. We become frustrated, skeptical about whether accountability will ever really come for Donald Trump and his criminal associates. Then this morning, as I was reading the latest accounts of DOJ ratcheting up its investigative efforts, I was reminded of one of my recurring experiences as a prosecutor. So I put pen to paper, I guess more accurately, I put finger to phone, and I put together a short string tweet. While tweeting is still a thing, we'll talk. And if you'll bear with me for just one more minute, I want to share with you my perspective on where we are right now on the investigative front as informed by my decades as a prosecutor. As we continue to wait for long overdue justice to come for Trump, I'm reminded of a phrase I heard a lot when I was prosecuting murder cases in D.C. The streets know. When we were investigating homicides proactively in the grand jury, meaning no arrest had yet been made, I would regularly meet with the victims' family members to update them on the status of the investigation. Understandably, they often would ask me, "What's taking so long? Why has there been no arrest, no indictment?" When I talk about the need for a thorough investigation to identify the killer, the family would often say, "But Mr. Kirshner, the streets know." And they were right. The streets often know who the criminal is long before law enforcement knows. Of course, police and prosecutors need to build cases on admissible evidence as opposed to word on the street. But I saw how frustrating, how maddening, how upsetting it was for families who had a loved one taken from them by violent crime, knowing who did it, but having to wait for what seemed like an eternity for an arrest, for an indictment. This is precisely where we the people are right now. We are the streets. We know who planned, orchestrated, and executed the insurrection. We know who stole classified documents and national defense information from the White House and unlawfully concealed it at Mar-a-Lago. We, the streets, know Trump committed these crimes. And we know Trump continues to endanger our democracy. And that is why it's so damn maddening that we have to sit here awaiting a Trump indictment while Trump and his criminal associates continue to try to burn it all down. So yes, the streets know what Trump has done. But just as I told my homicide families, we have to do a thorough investigation in the grand jury. We have to get this right, because when the killer is indicted, we want to make sure he's held accountable. And when Donald Trump is indicted, we want to make sure he's convicted. Because justice matters. So the streets know. We the people know. And we're going to get there. Friends, as always, please stay safe. Please stay tuned. And I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.